Here is an interesting story about science and the politics of science. As we recently became aware, countries compete with each other, and though science is often presented as a collaborative project for the advancement of humanity, nations like individual universities still care for their place in global science rankings. It is no wonder that the South China Morning Post published a piece on China overtaking the US in terms of the most influential papers, the top highly cited papers. As the report goes, China beats the US in the number of highly cited papers, moving to the top of the world. Specifically, the paper using data reported in the Journal of Scientometrics in March 2022 reports that China accounts for 27% of the world's most cited papers, while the US only 25%. This is a rather surprising outcome because many scientists share the idea that Chinese research is lacking in quality, though abundant in quantity. This is now short-sighted, says a policy expert, because being a top-cited paper is standing at the top 1% of all cited papers, and this is quality. And do remember that the Shanghai University rankings use the number of highly cited papers as a major component in ranking universities and ipso facto countries too. Are you looking to get a job in academia? Do you know how universities work? Do you understand the requirements for landing a job in academia? I am Professor Gad Yair. Join my online course on landing your academic career and I will walk you through the process of getting into academia. Click the link below and land a position as a professor. Anyway, according to the paper in Scientometrics, China has surpassed the United States for the first time to lead the world in the number of highly cited papers, a key indicator of scientific influence. The notion that Chinese researchers are putting out a lot of stuff but it's not good quality is just short-sighted, said science policy expert Caroline Wagner from Ohio State University. She responded to a report in Science magazine published last August. Science reported about a study by Japan's National Institute of Science and Technology, which tallied the top 1% papers in terms of citations. This is a rarefied stratum inhabited by many Nobel laureates. Many such elite articles have authors from multiple countries, however, which complicates the analysis. In one study, NISTEP used a method called fractional counting to divide the credit. If, for example, 1 French and 3 Swedish institutions contributed to a paper, France received 25% of the credit and Sweden 75%. Using that measure, China accounted for 27% of the most cited papers published in 2018 till 2020, and the United States 25%. Next was the United Kingdom with 5%, Japan was 10th place. US researchers were still slightly ahead when NISTEP used the less fine-grained method that credits every country that contributed to a highly cited paper equally, regardless of how many of its institutions were involved. Cao Kong, a science policy scholar at the University of Nottingham's campus in Ningbo, China, says the methodology may overstate China's contributions to internationally co-authored papers. The question is, who, the Chinese or their international collaborators, led the studies, he says. However, a decade ago, China only accounted for 6% of the world's highly cited papers, lagging far behind the United States, who had 41% of this rare output at that time. The report uses fractional counting to divvy up credit for papers with multiple authors. For instance, if a paper is co-authored by 2 universities in Japan and 1 university in the US, Japan receives 2/3 of the credit and the US receives 1/3. This is different from integer counting, a method used by the US National Science Foundation for some studies, which credits each country equally without considering how many institutions are involved. Even scientists cannot agree on the best method to use, leading to variations in ranking results. The Japanese Science and Technology Indicators report noted that by using the integer counting method, the US still lead China but by 3% in highly cited papers. Britain, Germany, and Australia rounded up the top 5 in the rankings, accounting for 5, 4 and 3% of highly cited papers, respectively. While many people associate highly cited papers with Nobel Prize laureates, that is not necessarily the case, a Nature investigation found in October 2014. Among the 100 most cited papers of all time, most described experimental methods that would later become essential in their fields. For instance, the most cited scientific paper introduced a test to determine the amount of protein in a solution. It was published by 3 researchers from Washington University in St. Louis in 1951. Meanwhile, the Nature investigation found that Nobel-winning findings such as the DNA's double helix structure and the accelerating expansion of the universe did not come close to making the top 100 list. Be that as it may, those looking at international trends in science investments and consequently science achievements are not surprised by China's march forward. It goes by plan, and if you took notice, President Biden has just announced an immense investment in science research, especially in the life sciences, an area that the US maintains leadership in anyway. So science is a managed endeavor, and investments make a huge difference, even if it takes years to reap the rewards. Just think of the investment in COVID-19 and the speed by which science responded. See you in my course and land your academic career. The link is below. Until next time, I am Professor Gad Yair.